This week's reading, The Secret of Right Action. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. One of the most famous stories in the Gospels is that of Martha and Mary. Jesus, visiting the home of Martha, was teaching while her sister Mary sat at his feet, absorbing divine love and wisdom. Martha, meanwhile, busied herself with serving her guest and was upset with Mary for not helping her. "Lord," she cried, "doesn't it matter to you that my sister has left me to do all this serving alone? Please ask her to help me." "Martha, Martha," Jesus answers, "thou art careful and troubled about many things, but one thing is needful, and Mary hath chosen that good part, which shall not be taken away from her." This story is classic, for Martha's complaint is very understandable, and not, on the surface of it, spiritually wrong. Jesus may well have told Mary to get up and help her. We don't really know that he didn't, considerate as he was always of others' needs. But the teaching here doesn't concern the obvious dilemma of devotees: to work for God or to spend one's time all alone in prayer. It concerns, rather, the attitude of the mind. Jesus didn't tell Martha, Martha, you are doing too much. He told her rather, you are letting your work affect your inner peace. That was the contrast, not work versus contemplation, but restless preoccupation versus peaceful absorption under all circumstances. As it says in the Bhagavad Gita in the 2nd chapter, actions performed under the influence of desire are greatly inferior to those which are guided by wisdom. Happiness eludes people when they act from self-interest. Seek shelter, therefore, in the equanimity of wisdom. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
Thank you, Omkara. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
How is everyone today?
Awake and ready.
Yeah. Yay. Yes. Whoops. Am I doing that? Happy Mother's Day. Whoops. There's a lot going on this morning. Are we awake? I have lots of notes. I have jokes. But I think the joke's on me this morning. Let's put this here for now, because I have a lot on my, let me just take a minute here. Okay, so happy Mother's Day. Especially to all who are mothers of children on this earthly plane, and then all who are also instruments of Divine Mother's love and care, whether female, male, godmother, fairy godmother. Many of you remember Linda Anderson. She was a member of our congregation. She passed away about 1.5 years ago. And she would always say, I didn't have earthly children in this lifetime, but I was a fairy godmother to many. And I said, yes, I'm so grateful. She was definitely, to us, a fairy godmother. In a couple of days, on Tuesday, we're going to be honoring the birthday of Sri Yukteswar. Sri Yukteswar, on May 10th, he was Yogananda's guru, and he was known as an avatar of deep divine wisdom. On the path to yoga, yoga simply means union. There's many different paths to yoga. We have the bhakti yogi, bhakti meaning love and devotion. Yogananda was known also as a bhakti yogi because he just exuded that love. He talked about Divine Mother. He talked about love a lot, kindness, those qualities. We have the karma yogi who approaches the path of yoga through service. And yesterday we had a all-day, we call it a Seva day, Seva meaning service, dedicated to Rajasi Janakananda. He was Yogananda's foremost disciple. It was a service day. And you could see there's lots of karma yogis showed up yesterday. And many beautiful things happened in the community. And thank you to everyone who showed up. It was such a beautiful day. And then there's the path of wisdom. And Sri Yukteswar, again, was known as that yogi of deep divine wisdom. Okay, the deeper teachings, the deeper meaning of the path. But he said, it's impossible to advance on the spiritual path without the natural love of the heart. And we all have this natural love of the heart. And Divine Mother comes to remind us of that. And that's what we're also honoring today, is that Divine Mother's love in all of us. There's a wonderful story in the Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. When he was a young boy, he had such deep spiritual aspirations, even as a young boy. And so he would go and visit the great saint, Master Mahashaya, often. And one day when he went to visit him, Master Mahashaya said he was busy and he couldn't visit with him today because he was visiting with Divine Mother. And little Yogananda could not stand the thought that Divine Mother was just in the other room. And he couldn't see him or he couldn't hear him. So he started to pester Master Mahashaya. And he even, I think it wrote in the Autobiography of a Yogi that he threw a tantrum. So here he is, this Yogananda, as a boy, had these deep spiritual aspirations. And here he is throwing a tantrum because he can't see him. And finally, Master Mahashaya concedes. He goes, okay, I will ask Divine Mother if she loves you. Now go home. And Yogananda goes home, and he goes to his little, he had a meditation room in his attic at his home. And as a little side note, for those of you who are coming on pilgrimage with us in October, we're going to go visit that little attic room. We're going to meditate in that room. Well, Yogananda just plants himself in that room, and he starts to meditate deeply. And wouldn't you know, Divine Mother appears to him and says the words, "Always have I loved thee, ever shall I love thee." Words of that beautiful chant we sang this morning. And he had a deep and beautiful blessing from Divine Mother. But Yogananda was still a boy, a young child, so he goes back to Master Mahashaya the next day, and in his mischievousness, that's what I'm referring to, he pretends as if nothing happened. And he goes, "Master Mahashaya, what did Divine Mother say? What did Divine Mother say?" And Master Mahashaya, of course, knew what happened. And he said, "Oh, little mischievous one, must I put into words the blessing and grace that you received last night?" And so that story is a beautiful reminder that Divine Mother, too, always has she loved me, ever shall she love us. Our other topic this morning is service. And how appropriately it fits with Mother's Day, doesn't it? I was thinking of the many types of service that a mother does. The list is endless, isn't it? But more than even all these things on a physical plane, she shares her love. I was remembering when we used to get the newspaper. That seems like so long ago. We'd get the Oregonian delivered to our door. And one of the favorite parts of the Oregonian was, of course, the comics. And one of my favorite comics was one called Baby Blues. And then the star is this little boy named Hammy. And in the first scene, the mother is walking by Hammy's room, and you can hear him grunting and saying, "Rats." And then the next scene, you can hear Hammy saying, "Dumb, stupid costume." And the next scene, the mother's knocking on his door. She says, "Can I help you?" And the next frame, you see her helping Hammy, and he says, "I bet real superheroes never get their capes stuck in their zippers." But it's so sweet, because then the mom in the next frame says, "But if they do, I bet their moms are there to help." It's sweet. And just because it's Mother's Day, second grade kids were asked the following questions. Why did God make mothers? Because she's the only one who knows where the Scotch tape is. How did God make mothers? Magic and superpowers and a lot of stirring. And if you could change one thing about your mom, what would it be? I'd like to get rid of those invisible eyes on the back of her head. There's a story of a beautiful cathedral that was being built in Europe. It was going to be one of the most grand and magnificent of all time. And there were 3 masons working side by side. And someone went up to the first mason and he said, "What are you doing?" And that first mason said, "Well, I'm just biding my time till I could find a better job." And then he went to the second person and he said, "Well, what are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I'm a stone mason and I work with brick and mortar." And then the person went to the last person and he said, "Oh, we're building something beautiful for God." And this is, in essence, is what our reading is talking about this morning, is what are we doing when we're doing our work, when we're doing our daily activities of the day. And the story is not about whether Martha was in the kitchen or the living room, or was she washing dishes or vacuuming or whatever she was doing, but what was her attitude? Was she thinking of God or not as she was doing her activities, as she was going through the day-to-day moments of her life? And what a great question. Omkara read, each week we read from Rays of the One Light with weekly commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita, but they're very brief. If you ever want to go more deeply into any of these readings, this is a wonderful book by Swami Kriyananda, Promise of Immortality. He takes each reading each week, the Bible and the Gita reading, and just gives us a deeper understanding, a deeper clarification of the topic. It's a wonderful book. He only had the opportunity to write 1 through 26, and we have 52 weeks. This was, he's no longer alive for anyone that's new here today. His hope was to finish and do the second part of this book, but fortunately we do have the first part. And I wanted to just read a little bit more about what Swami Kriyananda says about this topic. The need for God-centeredness during activity is clear, but there remains the important question, how? Isn't that the million-dollar question? Those steaming pots in the kitchen were the challenge that Martha faced. What if the rice burned, the vegetables got overcooked, the stew boiled over and created a mess on the stove? Martha could not have dismissed these concerns by merely closing her eyes and denying their existence while affirming, "Peace, be still." Inner attunement must be adapted to outer necessities. The devotee must strengthen and not relinquish his grip on reality. He can do that by accepting it calmly, not by rejecting it, nor by seizing on it desperately as something that has to be done. But the best way to strengthen one's grip on reality is not with tension, but by mentally sharing all that one does with God. People often find themselves at work chatting with others. Why not then talk inwardly with God? Why not sing to Him? If outward singing is not feasible, why not sing inwardly? Repeat mentally, "I am thine, Lord, be thou mine." Other word formulae will do as well. Choose one that you find inspiring. This practice in India is known as japa. Yogananda made an interesting remark on this subject. He said, "Once I was working so hard," he said, "that I was afraid of forgetting God. Then all at once I realized that in the very thought I was remembering Him." Remembrance of God must be practiced consciously and deliberately. Activity is not so much a time for receiving energy, but as for giving it. God remembrance must be charged with energy. Only thus can we offset the energy demanded of us by our work. Gradually putting intense energy into everything we do, our mind becomes conditioned to the upliftment needed for raising our consciousness later in meditation. These two paths, then meditation and service, must work together. When they are balanced, Yogananda said, then meditation helps your work and work helps your meditation. At Ananda, our path is one of meditation and service. I remember a friend once said to me that, "Ananda, you pray all the time." Before we start our spiritual practices with the energization exercises to give us the energy so that we can meditate. We start with a prayer. We start our meditation with a prayer, right? And then we end our meditation with a prayer in Healy prayers. And then we start before we eat with a prayer. And then before we start our work, we end with a prayer. And a meeting with a prayer, we end with a prayer. All these things, what? To bring that consciousness, to bring that reminder back of God's presence in our lives, to remember Him as we're doing these activities. I have a friend now, technology is wonderful, on her phone, a little bell goes off however she has it set for, I can't remember, 15 minutes or a half hour, but every time it goes off and it's the most lovely little ring, ding, and it just reminds her to stop. Years ago, before all this technology, I used Post-it pads. I remember trying to remember God, and I just wrote, "Love God," and I had it everywhere. When I was going to brush my teeth, when I was going to wash the dishes, when I was going to turn off the light, when I was going to lock my door. Anywhere to help remind me. That's japa. It's not only a tradition that's used in the East, but also in the West. A lot of Christian mystics have used that tradition. Brother Lawrence talks about practicing his presence in his book, beautiful book. And he talks that at the end, he realized that no matter what he was doing at the end, whether he was sitting at his altar, praying to God, or doing any activity, he could still feel God's presence. And that's the reminder today that Divine Mother is with us always. But our energy, our devotion, our willingness has to be charged with energy. It takes energy to know God, doesn't it? So therefore, we practice the energization together. But then we remember to invite God consciously into everything we're doing. And then remembering, even in the thought of, oh my gosh, I'm not remembering Him, right? Even Yogananda said this, I am remembering Him. What does Krishna offer us? He said, even a fruit, a flower, even a leaf offered to me in my name will be received with great joy because it comes from you, right? And we can sometimes we have the opportunity to do great things. Maybe we're building a great cathedral dedicated to God. but maybe we're doing something smaller, that we would say is smaller. Maybe we're just washing the dishes. But anything could be offered. If it's offered to him, it will be accepted with great joy. It's like the beggar who came home after a day of begging all day with just that little tiny satchel of rice, right? And he empties it out on his table and he sees he has just so few grains. He doesn't have much. And then he sees the great king coming to him in the distance and he's thinking, oh my gosh, here is the great king coming to visit me. I wonder what he's going to give me. And then the great king comes right up to him and he just opens his hand to him. And at first the beggar's appalled. He goes, how could he ask me for anything, I who have nothing, right? And so then he decides, okay, he gives him one tiny grain of rice. I guess they're all tiny. And he just gives him one. And the great king goes home at the end of the day. And then the beggar sees at the end of the day that one grain of rice has turned to gold. Okay, it doesn't have to be a big thing. But just that remembrance, practicing this presence, japa, putting pictures up, listening to stories from the saints, listening to the masters, their voice brings us to them, playing the Om CD, mantra of eternity, listening to his music. Swami Kriyananda said, if you want to know me, sing my music. If you can't sing it, listen to it. Sing, listen to it, read it. All these wonderful ways to remember God in our lives. So I want to end with Yogananda, again, just to honor mothers. Yogananda wrote a beautiful poem called Mother's Day, and I'd like to read it. I'm going to give Stephen a copy. So let's just take a moment, and if you're comfortable, close the eyes. Let's sit up as if we're sitting in meditation. Back away from the back of the chair, gently roll the shoulders back. These are Yogananda's words to Divine Mother. O mothers of every clime and age, you are glorious gates of service and mercy unconditional, through which the Divine Mother has entered and offered grace and protection to all earth's children. From the scorching sun rays of wants, shelter and surcease are found in the shade of the Mother's tender help. When the world has no use for the erring one, and forgiveness is coldly withheld, the Mother still has only love and amnesty for her transgressive son. So to my mother and to every woman, my mothers all, I do bow, for in them I behold the Divine Mother incarnate. With every devoted son of the earth who plucks a flower and offers it in love to the mother who gave him birth, I join with my love and give that blossom to my Divine Mother divine. For 'tis she who abides in every motherly form, sent to earth's sad vale to make it joyous sweet by their sacred representation of the all-nurturing divine presence. In my mother's voice I hear a subtle soul-awakening call of the mother behind my mother. In my mother's willing forgiveness, I find the compassionate pardon of the cosmic mother. In my mother's selfless tending, the divine ministering. In my mother's caressing love, the boundless love of the mother of all. Om, peace, amen. And now,
Mother of Wisdom, from his oratorio Christ lives.
And Anna have them. Okay. Just take a moment and appreciate the beauty and the grace of God that shines through so beautifully all these hearts, all these lives. Thank you for your kindness, your love, the strength you allow to flow through you, the beauty, the constancy. In chanting Om, let's send them all of our appreciation, all of our love. Stay up here, don't go anywhere.
Sing out with joy, God's light has descended. Sing out with joy, all our nights have ended. Sing out with joy, God's light has descended. Sing out with joy, all our nights have ended. Light on every mountain, oh light in every valley. Light from all the masters, we live in the Lord. Light on every mountain, oh light in every valley. Light from all the masters, we live in the Lord. Sing out with joy, God's light has descended. Sing out with joy, all our nights have ended. Sing out with joy, God's light has descended. Sing out with joy, all our nights have ended. Light on every mountain, oh light in every valley. Light from all the masters, we live in the Lord. Light on every mountain, oh light in every valley. Light from all the masters, we live in the Lord. Light on every mountain, oh light in every valley. Light from all the masters, we live in the Lord.
Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Friend, beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, Paramahansa Yogananda. Thank you for your presence in this world.
Thank you for your presence in this world.
For your presence in our lives.
For your presence in our lives.
Bless these mothers.
Bless these mothers.
Bless these women.
Bless these women.
That they carry your divine love.
That they carry your divine love.
Out into the world.
Out into the world.
In blessing.
In blessing.
And in invitation.
And in invitation.
To the upliftment of all mankind.
To the upliftment of all mankind.